So I will present you basically from mainly a climate perspective, but also touching upon the other aspects of the Green Deal and the green recovery. So right now, more than ever, we are facing existential threats that are putting both the planet and the people in peril. Obviously, governments, they should have the main responsibility and ultimate responsibility to protect their citizens. And in that sense, right now we have COVID, we always have a climate, but any kind of future threat should be always in the mind of our political masters, so they take this protection of the citizen as their main priority. And into that, there is a clear relation to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development from the United Nations and also to the Paris Agreement, because both of them, they will remain crucial to help the different countries and the entire world for the future systemic shocks. So in the months to come, and not only months, but also years, because this won't disappear in just a couple of spring times or summer times. So we will see how there will be a post-COVID economic recovery, and we should use that opportunity to transition to a sustainable, socially just, resilient, and climate neutral economy. And in the European Commission, we have very clear that we should follow the principle of we must do no harm. So I will start a bit catastrophic with a full set of pictures of what's going on today. In the center, you have a clear picture on how global warming is affecting the entire world. It may seem that the obvious consequences of having higher temperatures and dry lands is the immediate and the most affected one. But if you look up there into the Arctic and the coldest regions of the world, probably they're the ones facing even much more increase of temperatures. We're witnessing extreme weather disasters, wildfires, problems with biodiversity, with, for example, you see that up there on the right with the locusts that are destroying all the food system and supplies, how the Siberia is warming more and more, and this will cause problems with the permafrost that could lead potentially to a full set of microorganisms or diseases, and also CO2 emissions. So it may seem a bit catastrophic, but it is, and it can be even much worse. So I saw months ago this comic strip, and I really thought it really reflects what's going on. We're right now in the first one, the COVID, and it looks like a huge wave, and it's very tragic and very dramatic, and we should use also that opportunity to prepare for future shocks like that one. But then comes the economic crisis, which is going to be and is starting to be much more important. But obviously, probably the shade of these two waves is not allowing us to see the later on and the big tsunamis that are coming. Climate change was there. It's true that with the crisis, emissions have decreased, but it also happened for some time in the financial crisis of 2009. But those are just drops in the oceans. It's not solving the problem at all. In the medium long term, it does not represent anything, and especially if there are countries that opt for a fossil fuel based recovery. So we always have climate change. And then we have the biodiversity, which is also why the Green Deal is looking into many other aspects. Because if we fail to limit our global warming, we will destroy the planet. All the biodiversity will be end. And at the end of the day, without resources, with a big economic crisis, the only, let's say, prediction that we can make is that there will be a war for natural resources. So the topics we're dealing these days are of extremely severity and importance for the decades to come and for the future of the planet and for our people. Okay. Yeah. So climate change is at the heart of many of the current problems we witness in our world. This picture is taken from the Global Risk report from the World Economic Forum, and I think it really shows very well the different nexus that there is with climate change into the extreme weather conditions, the biodiversity loss, with the water crisis, with the migration movements that at the end may create the social instability, etc., etc. So climate change indeed has very complex interconnections with many other topics. So we need really an integrated approach. So that's why in the European Commission we decided to put it at the core of our future, because if we fail to solve this immense challenge, we will fail also in many other parts. And that part of the integrated approach, the answer to that is the Green Deal that I will present a bit later. If I can move my screen. Okay. So what the latest climate science is telling us, there was a special report on global warming of 1.5 back in 2008. So right now, we are already at global warming at 1 degree above 1990 levels. And we will start to witness very severe consequences already when 1.5. If you think that we are at an average of 0.2 per decade, that means that in 20 years, we will be there already, 1.5. And even though the Paris Agreement states that we should aim at least 2 degrees, the report already shows how this is already transforming our environment, including land and oceans and water, and also in the frequency and intensity of severe extreme weather events. And already with 1.5, we will have quite many issues, and with 2 degrees, it's going to be really bad. So if we see at the graphic, currently, the projections with the current policies at global level will show that indeed we're aiming for almost 4 degrees of global warming, and that's going to be a complete disaster. So we see there the 1.5, and we see an estimation. The shape that the curve should have if we really want to avoid the disaster in our planet. So the Paris Agreement is very ambitious, and it really was the first exercise when all countries decided to do something all together. So there is a lot of ambition, but it's still very inadequate. So we should aim to have much more ambition than that. And if you see in the graphic that is very similar to the previous one, you see the different scenarios. You see the scenario where no policy is doing anything, and then we go to the risk of almost around 4 degrees, and then the different scenarios by using different reduction of emission targets. So if you really want to go to 2 degrees, I'm not talking even about 1.5, you need to have a reduction of 7.4% per year. And I'm talking only about the 2 degrees scenario. And definitely, the ideal situation would be the 1.5. So we cannot act alone. Europe cannot become simply an island of excellence in an ocean of contaminating countries. So this is an international issue. And it's not only international issue, but it's intergenerational for our future generations, and also about international solidarity. And with the post-COVID scenario, in the coming years, the different governments all around the world, they will spend more than 10 trillion euros that at the end of the day, they will borrow from the young people for the future generation. So we have really a debt with us people. So we must act with sense of future and with responsibility. So international effort, global solidarity, and multilateralism are really crucial to avoid lapsing into fossil fuel and resource-intensive recovery. Because at the end of the day, that will be a similar solution what happened in the financial crisis in 2009, that at the end of the day ended up in increasing the emissions. So, and this is not about ideology, but this is about scientific evidence and economic logic. So all governments from the world, they have rational reasons to bet on a green economic recovery. And into that, the EU's Green Deal that was presented last December, before all of this happened, remains valid, and it remains more valid than ever. And it will be the red thread running through our green recovery strategy in the European Union. So I mentioned it already, so I will start presenting some elements about the European Green Deal. That's a huge document. There is a communication that is about a few pages, but this is accompanied by hundreds of pages of reading. So if you have any specific interest, I will highly encourage you to consult over there. So the European Green Deal is all about transforming the EU's economy for a sustainable future, and of course, leaving no one behind into that. It has started with a set of deeply transformative policies, and we not only designing them, but also trying to make them mainstream in all EU policies and everything we do. For that, obviously, you need money, you need to finance this transition, and we're talking about huge amounts. And as I mentioned, we need to do that with a just transition approach. So everybody is included and no one is left behind. For that, we will become a global leader, but as I mentioned, we cannot become an island of excellence. And also internally at domestic level, we need a European climate pact. We need to engage with our citizens so they are fully on board and we fully understand what are their concerns. So about the transformative policies, I'm just highlighting them, so I won't enter into the detail of that for the sake of time. So first, obviously, is, as I mentioned, climate is at the core of the Green Deal. Climate is the core of the future of the European Union for the coming decades. So we need to increase our ambition, both for 2030, when we have the first target, and then for 2050 to become the first climate neutral continent in the entire planet. For that, we need to have and supply clean, affordable, and secure energy. We need to mobilize the industry for a clean and circular economy, because at the end of the day, the industry and business are the ones moving the economy, creating jobs, generating growth, and allowing our citizens to progress. We need also to build and renovate in an energy and resource efficient way. We need to aim for a zero pollution ambition for a toxic-free environment. Very important, we need to preserve and restore the ecosystems and biodiversity. Let's remember the different waves from the comic stripe. And then also about how we see the food supplies, because we need to feed everybody in a healthy and environmental friendly food system. So this is the strategy farm to fork. And obviously the cities and the transport is a huge chunk of the emissions. So we need to accelerate the shift to sustainable and smart mobility. So from the climate part, you have probably heard about it, the climate law that intends to be presented in 100 days, and that was the case already. And we are now in discussions with the Parliament and with the Council in the trialogue to make it work. So that will mean increasing the ambition. I will talk later on about the 55%. How we will have to adapt many directives, regulation. So we have really a hard work in front. Then we will also revise the energy taxation, and then also about the carbon border adjustment mechanism, which is going to be a very big issue with our international partners, together with a new EU strategy on adaptation. About the other parts, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go very much in detail. I'm sure that you will get the slides into that, so you will be able to find the specific point of your interest with a lot of aspects dealing with energy and the national energy climate plans from every EU member states, about the renovation, about buildings, about the new industrial strategy that was released in March, but in the last State of the Union, President Ursula von der Leyen announced that for next spring there will be even a new one that will be revisited to adapt to the new circumstances. We also released the new Circular Economy Action Plan, and we have a lot of strategies to deal with batteries, with waste, with clean steel, for example, based on hydrogen, the hydrogen strategy. There is a lot. The European Commission right now is a boiling pot with many, many new initiatives and strategies that will little by little be released to the external world. So say the smart mobility, we're right now with a lot of packages about how this should be seen into the coming years. So again, a lot of work to be done and also revisited in line of the increased ambition. About food, as I said, about how to reduce use of pesticides, fertilizers, antibiotics, national strategy plans, how to create a sustainable food chain. About biodiversity, because if we don't have biodiversity, we don't have what we will have left to ensure the sustainability of the planet. I also link very much to the food systems, to land degradation, etc., etc. Yeah, and I just say I would say that the novelty of the European Green Deal, in many aspects, is not bringing new policies, but use what is there already, connect all the dots, and this systemic approach to have this horizontal and coordinated approach is the real novelty of the Green Deal and is the only way that will make things work. So, as I say, we need to mainstream all of that into different policies. We need to find the money for that transition and leave no one behind. And obviously, the 2030 agenda will be paramount. And for that, we need to keep on leading at the international level on climate and biodiversity negotiations. We're also exporting, we want to export the Green Deal approach. So obviously, it has first a domestic focus, but this is also the cornerstone for external cooperation with our international partners, using Green Deal diplomacy with our allies and all the countries around the world, now also with the Western Balkans, with the neighborhood countries, and we need to make Paris Agreement an essential element for all future trade agreements with the different countries. So I mentioned the climate law because the climate law will be the first and the crucial element that will enable us to build all the rest. Without the climate law that will set in stone or climate neutrality by 2050, we will go nowhere. And this is the main and hard homework that we have to do during these months with the Parliament and with the Council. And this, in addition, it will ensure predictability for investors for the next 30 years. I mean, an investor won't go to a country where they will not know what will happen in the next 6 months. So we want to give this stability to the investors because a lot of money will be needed. So if you want to invest so much money, you need to have this stability. So we will enshrine the climate neutrality in 2050, but into the law. We will ensure that there will be discipline and accountability for the different EU member states, how to develop a mechanism that will enable us to achieve those objectives. And then every new proposal from the Commission, you know that when we do policy, we do an impact assessment before to ensure that the citizens will buy in and agree and will be comfortable with the law. So there is always a climate neutrality aspect. And then also, obviously, the role of adaptation, not only mitigation, and the point of public participation. Sorry. So yes, it will be an union-wide objective, an economy-wide objective, aiming to net zero emission, and this objective will be achieved domestically. It's important to know that it doesn't mean every single EU member state should be climate neutral, but the EU as a whole. So very quickly, as we are talking about climate change, refreshing the information about the Paris Agreement, which was the first ever universal legally binding agreement on climate change. It was adopted by 195 countries in 2015, and then there were 2 other countries, so 197. And the last information is that it has been already ratified by 187. So the Paris Agreement focuses on 2 elements: on mitigation, which is the reduction of emissions to limit temperatures well below 2 degrees, and ideally 1.5 compared to 1990, the pre-industrial times. And then another leg important is the adaptation part that will ensure that whatever happens in the future, we're ready for that. As I said, mitigation and adaptation, the 2 main legs, even though it's true that the main focus so far is mitigation. So, in line to that, I must say that the most important message we can pass is how we have grown in the EU, and at the same time we reduce the emissions. Our target was 20% for 2020, and we are already in 23%. So we are overachieving that. And in the meantime, the latest indication is 61%, not 58. The slide is a bit outdated. So imagine, it's 3 times more. We reduce more than what we aimed to, and we grew 3 times more. So I think this is the most powerful message we can convey to our international partners. So this is really possible, and that should be the way for the future of the planet. A quick glimpse of how we internally in the European Union we're contributing to the greenhouse gas emissions. Obviously, the energy supply is the biggest one, followed by transport and by industry. So these are the 3 main elements we are targeting internally at the domestic level to make the reductions happen. So here you have also some analysis on the different sources and how exactly, in a bit more of detail, they're contributing, and which has been the evolution in the past years. As you see, there has been a clear decrease in the energy supply. There has been a clear decrease in the industry part. And if you see I was referring all the time to the financial crisis in 2009, just there you saw a decrease in energy and industry, but immediately after it increased once again. So that's why I'm saying that now with the COVID situation, the reduction of emissions we're having is just a drop in the ocean. It will be nothing compared to the medium and long term. So that's why the importance of the investment into a green recovery. There are some others that have been more or less stable with a slightly decrease. So we need also to work into those ones. And as I mentioned in the European Green Deal, we aim to keep the European leadership in climate and biodiversity negotiations. So if you see how we've been since the 90s decreasing the greenhouse emission, that's, the picture talks on its own. And again, also, it's very important and very clear to see how the share of renewable energy has also increased quite a lot since 2014, from an 8.5 share to 17.5. And we would expect the estimations are that 20 will be reached in this year, but we have not yet the data. So this is, as you say, pictures are better than words. So this is also an important message to international partners. So, still with the current legislation, those are the targets we had. So it was about the 40% to comply with Paris Agreement commitments. Our estimations show that with all the legislation were to be in place and running, we would achieve certainly 45%, and then we agreed also on 34% 32% of renewable energy, at least 32.5 on energy efficiency, and 15% coming from interconnection. But all of this is already outdated, because just some weeks ago, in the State of the Union on the 16th of September 2020, the European Commission, represented by our President Ursula von der Leyen, presented its plan to reduce EU greenhouse gas emission by at least 55% by 2030. And I say by at least 55. Current talks were saying at least 50%, ideally 55. Now we are even much more ambitious. So we have a tremendous challenge in the years to come. And obviously all these previous ones on renewable energy, energy efficiency, interconnection, we need to revisit and see if we needed to be even more ambitious into that, and how, I would say, sorry for the expression, how the hell we're going to do that. So, and to complicate even more the things, we have COVID-19. So that's why I really stress the need of that green recovery, because it has been a major shock, and we have not recovered for that. So you see there the projections of the growth in GDP, and how right now we, in as EU as a whole, we have lost 7.4%, and we've estimated that we will recover a bit, but still we will be 6.1 below what was expected. So I think we have also tough times in the time. I remember the second wave, the economic one. So we have seen indeed the change in employment, and obviously the increase of unemployment. Right now, obviously every country is different, and this is our just averages. We lost 4%, and then in terms of unemployment, it grew at 9%. It's expected that in 2021, when you have lost that much employment, you will have a positive trend, but let's cross fingers. And this is, let's hope that all governments react swiftly, and then and that the unemployment will be reduced in 2021, but that's too early to check on that. So the principles of our economic response, so we must keep the economy going. We cannot afford the economy to be paralyzed into that. We need to support workers and also business. If you don't support the business, then they will fire people, and then we need a key player into that. So we need to invest a lot of money to keep those business alive. We need to adapt the funding to the crisis, and I will just talk about that. And we, at the European level Commission, we are putting all the available resources to get out of this crisis. So the green recovery will consist about state aid rules, which will be liquidity to the economy, support to SMEs, to the creation of jobs or not losing those jobs, etc. And related to the employment, we released the SURE program, which was 100 billion euros for precisely these unemployment mechanisms and to cope with the most immediate problems for the companies. We will complement the European Central Bank measures with 750 billion of new measures, and already to the 120 that were already provided, with the new recovery plan for Europe, with the 750 billion for Next Generation EU, and a revamped long-term EU budget, the multi-financial framework of 1,100 billion of euros. We will have to be flexible. We know we're well known for being bureaucratic and rigid, but in this case, we will introduce escape clauses to ensure the maximum flexibility to cope with the circumstances, and then a coronavirus response investment initiative. There you have a bit more the structure. So the MFF will be almost 1,100. The Next Generation EU, which is the specific one package related to the crisis right now, is 700 billion, of which there will be 390 billion of grants and 360 billion of loan. So this means in total is 1,824 billion of euros that we have put on the table to get out from here, and that's a huge amount of money. If you remember, I mentioned that worldwide, probably there will be like 10 trillion, and from this 10 trillion, almost 2 will be coming from the European Union. And to that, we need to add if any European member state will have their own funding. So I think that Europe is leading by example once more into this green recovery. So as I said, solidarity should be the main element to overcome the crisis. As I said, the specific instrument is the Next Generation EU, and it will focus into 3 pillars. So it will be to support member states to recover, but also second element to kickstart the economy and private investment, and third to learn the lessons from the crisis, so we don't also fall into the same mistakes in the 2019 crisis. So, as I could not quote better than my executive vice president and commissioner for climate change, Frans Timmermans. So, if we're going to invest billions in the recovery, let's not sink it into an obsolete 20th century fossil fuel economy and soon to be stranded assets, but to invest it in a competitive, inclusive, and green economy of the 21st century for jobs and for our health. So, thank you very much for your attention.